Hello, everyone. You're welcome to another SQL session. So today we'll be discussing about the update statements. Okay, so I would be talking about updates. Now, when we say updates, we mean modification. Okay, so it's more like modification of records in a table. Okay, so it's more like modification of records in a table. So that is the meaning of that's what update does. All right. So what do we mean by this? The keyword that is being used most is update and set. All right. So we'll see that in action. Now let's look at our table. Let me use the employee table. So I'll say select all from employee and I run this. So this is my employee table and these are the records in my employee table. All right. Now, what do we want to do here? Let's say I realize that Grace's surname is not Neji. Okay, so this was an error. We could see that everybody's name here is Neji. So some persons probably that has been imputed wrongly for them, and so I want to do some changes. So I would say, okay, so now what is Grace's surname? Say maybe Grace's surname is Michael, or let's say yes. Oh, she already has Michael as middle name. So let's think of another surname for her. Okay, now we would start with an SQL magic comments or command, and then we are going to do an update. Update, what do we want to update? We want to update the employee table. Okay, now after declaring the table, what do you want to do in the employee table? I want to set the last name column to this. So what value do I want to put there? So let's say finally found a surname for Grace, and let's say it is Raymond. Okay, so now Grace's surname is Raymond. But how would this command realize that it is Grace's surname you want to change? So to do that, I would have to put my where plus, which is to give a condition, right? So I would say where first name is Grace. Okay, so when I do this, it will check the entire table, and for every record that has the first name as Grace, the last name is going to be Raymond. All right, so let us run this. For this, we have just one. Okay, we have two. Interestingly, we have two records here that have Grace. So that means two rows will be affected. Okay, so when I run this, two rows affected. And let's rerun the table and see what we have. I think we should just rerun it from here and run this. We can see that Grace here appears with Raymond, and Grace here appears with Raymond. Okay, so you realize that the update statement has gone into the table based on the condition it has changed that information. What happens if we don't include the condition? So I would say update, and let's just repeat this statement. Okay, copy this and I paste it, and let's remove this condition. So let me explain it. So what is happening here is that this is a full statement without an error, but it could be a mistake which you need to be mindful of. So when you are using the update statements without applying a condition, it's still valid to be successful, because all you are saying here is update this table based on the last name and change every value in the column called last name to Raymond. The where statement only dilutes this particular statement by narrowing it to certain conditions. So without the where statement, you are saying do this for the entirety of the last name column. And when you do this, we will see that usually we have 10 records, right? So we already have Grace here with Raymond. So it will just check, okay, Grace has Raymond, this other Grace has Raymond. So it will affect the remainder. Let's see what happens. Let's just rerun this, okay? So when we rerun this, we see that everybody's name, everybody's name has Raymond as the last name. Okay, so we everybody here is kind of related. That's what it looks like. All right. So now that is the effect of using the update update statements. So you need to understand how to use it. Let's do another kind of manipulation of the table. Let's assume that we want to increase the ages of the employees and want to increase it by, say, 10 years. So they are 10 years older. Okay, I don't know why somebody would want to do that increment, but whatever reason it is, let's hope it's not a mistake. Okay, so I would say update employee set. What are we setting? The employee age. So it's employee underscore age. We are setting it to 10 years increments. So it's more of 10 years more. All right. So that means we are going to say the employee age plus 10. All right. So now I don't need to put a where clause because it's not like I'm saying there should be it should be certain employees, okay? Or we could say something like where. So I want to increase the ages of people from Ghana. Okay, let's look at Ghana. Okay, we've already touched Greece, so let's allow Greece. So let's look at Niger. Okay, so there are three records here, and let's increase these ages. Interestingly, they have the same age. Okay, so let's increase these ages. All right. So now where I would say where the employee location, that's EMP location, employee location, where the employee location is, um we said Niger, right? Okay, so when we do this, it tells us three rows are affected. And when we go here, let's just let's just add another cell after this so that we could compare the tables. Okay, so I would do SQL and I would do all from select all from employee. Okay, so when I do this, I run. Now let's look at the people from Nigeria. You would see them at the end of the table. So you see this is 45, 45, 45. So 10 years was added to them because initially there were 35, 35, 35. All right. So that's how the modifications can go on. So you could think of different kinds of modifications and your update statements would come to rescue. Okay, there are other things you could use update for, which is still modification. So I could say that let's do another kind of addition. Okay, let's say I I have um let's do this SQL and I'm doing select. Why am I so interested in select? So I'll use update the employee table, and I want to set let's say I want to set the last name, or should be the last name. So I want to set it to, I want to add some strings. Okay, so I want to say the last name plus the say I want to see people that are from France. I want to put French as an additional name. Okay, so I would say the last name plus say I would say French. Okay, so I put a space before this so that it to give a space between the last name and that. Okay, so then I put my condition where where the location is France. Okay, so that means what we're expecting here is for every last name you should have French beside it. So you probably want to use that in text if this is French. Okay, so now when I run this, oh, I have an error. Okay, so it's telling me my error is this operator, the plus operator on why should that be an error? All right, okay. So I believe that the issue here is that this is Postgres, okay? So Postgres has some slight changes with MySQL. So usually MySQL would work with a plus sign, but because we are trying to concatenate, okay? So Postgres has its own concatenation way, which is these two strokes, okay? So hopefully this should work. It should work. So when I do this, two rows affected. So when I do my select, let's go to SQL and say select all from where I'm doing from employee, right? So when I do this, I should see, you see this? So Tina's last name is now Raymond French. Raymond French. Okay, so that is what you could do. You could do a lot of modifications with the update statement. Let's try some things out, very few things before we round up this particular part of update. So we could, let's try updating. Let's try updating. Um, we'll come back to the notes. Let's try updating multiple columns. Okay, so let's do this. SQL, and we want to update the employee table, and want to do that by setting. So we now, in doing multiple columns, the question is, why do you want to use multiple columns? For example, um, I want to be certain that it is this particular person I want to, or this particular record or value I want to change. Okay, because you could see some, if I probably say I want to do I'm looking for two names that probably have um, different values somewhere. Okay, so almost everyone kind of. Okay, so let me do something here. Okay, let me change a particular value. So let's say I want to update employee. I want to set the last name. I want to set the last name to say someone. Okay, I want to set the last name to someone, and where the employee ID is 2. So that means it will check only this particular employee ID and take effect, because realize that employee ID was a unique column, or it is a unique column. So definitely these two should be for only this record. All right. So because we did our primary key constraints on that column. When I do this, one row is affected. And when I check this, it tells me, yes, so we have Byron, the same information, but the last name is different. Okay, so let us assume that we have almost everything but one part different. So I would say maybe I want to say update the employee table by setting the, what do I want to set? Say I want to set the age, all right? So say employee age. I realize that this age is not what it should be. So hmm, I could just give it a value, say 23, and I say where, maybe I want to say where the first name, Iron. So if I do this, it will have an effect, because we have three Byrons And so that means if I do this, all the Byrons will have the same age. So I could say where the first name is Byron, and I'll introduce and the last name is someone. When I do this and I run, so there is only one person that has Byron and someone. So if there was somebody else that had this, then it will affect that. So this is another way of trying to narrow your modification. So when I do this, it tells me just one row is affected. Okay. So now when I come back here and I say select all from employee, I would realize that yes, Byron is now 23 years and other Byrons are still 45 years. Okay, so that's the effect of using the update statement. So this is doing it on multiple columns. All right, so but there is one more thing I would like to show you about update. So you have done this on multiple columns. How about we want to check um multiple values in one column. Okay, multiple values in one column. So this is multiple columns. All right, so now I want to say I want to update, let's say I just want to update maybe different people but based on a particular column criteria. Okay, so let's do this. I would say SQL, and I would say update. I would say, what do we want to update? We want to update the, let's say we want to update the let's say we want to update the location. Okay, so I want to update the location, sorry, update the employee table, and we'll say set the location, which is the emp location, to, let's call another country's name that's not here. So let's say Cameroon. Okay, so I say to Cameroon. Now I will say where. So I want to say that I want to change this grace, which is employee ID. So I would say also I want to use the employee ID column. So where employee ID, so I want to say I want to change Grace and Tina to Cameroon. So I would say where employee ID in, I will introduce the in keyword, and I would just put a bracket and say Grace is the Grace I want to change has the employee ID 5. I put my comma, and the Tina I want to change probably has the employee ID 7. Okay, so I put 7. This is all. So when I run this, it tells me two rows are affected. And when I run my SQL to confirm what I have implemented, I would realize that, okay, oh, okay, I use uppercase for the SQL, it should be lowercase. So when I do this, it tells me, let's look for Grace. This is Grace, Cameroon. This is Tina, Cameroon. But we have another Grace who's still Ghana, and we have another Tina who's still France. So we realize that we have checked almost in short everything that is required to understand the update statement. So what have we done so far? We have talked about updating, which is the modification of records in a table, right? Then we've also discussed updating without a where that, okay, we said updating is usually done, with a where clause, okay, with a where clause, sorry, with a where clause to filter filter to filter the table based on the criteria. Okay, so we are updating to, so we use a where clause to filter, okay, to filter or to give a criteria. Let's use that to give a criteria for the modification. Okay, so it's more like giving a specific condition to modify. Okay, so we've talked about this, and we've talked about updating without a where clause. Okay, without a where clause, updating without a where clause modifies the entire column declared in the update statement. Okay, so that's what we said, and that's what we saw. So after this, what do we do? We also checked that it is possible to update based on multiple columns, and this is done with the where clause combined with the and. Okay, so we also realized that in Postgres, to concatenate strings in Postgres, you need you need to use the is operator. Okay, so now then we also saw that you could also update based on multiple conditions, multiple conditions in the same column. Okay, in the same column, and we did this with the and where and in. Okay, we did this with the where and in. Okay, so we did this with the where and all right. So this is all we need to know and understand about the update statements. You learn more about other statements in SQL in our subsequent sessions. Hope you enjoyed this. Thank you very much.